Welcome to our Morning Throners podcast.
I'm Nelson.
I'm Jeff.
And I'm Kyle.
And we're the fucking Morning Throners. Welcome back, everybody, to your favorite Song of Ice and Fire podcast. We're the Morning Throners. We got Tyrion 11, 5 AG.
Yep.
Crazy.
We're getting in there. This was the first one that when I went to send the email to you guys with the link to record, Google didn't suggest. Google normally after I put two names it would suggest Glow.
Glow's gone.
Google
Let's see though.
He quit.
It looks like in 2 chapters we do get a John. So maybe he'll make his reappearance in 2 weeks. We'll see.
We can't just bring him back for like an episode here and there.
Sure we can.
I don't think that's fair to the fans.
Yeah.
What's up to Glow? We'll see
Let us know in the Discord.
I think they'll take any Glow. Also, Kyle's voice is shot because Kyle was at a hockey game this weekend. Go Avs.
Yeah.
Go Avs. It's a shame they lost last night if they just swept them all. But now you get a little bit of drama.
You're not going to sweep the champs.
Yeah.
That's all I got to say.
Now you get a chance to go back to Colorado for Game 5.
I can't go back to Colorado. I can't. I will never financially recover from that.
And we're still hoping his voice recovers.
Was
Joe
that?
Exotic.
I was gonna say, is that the Joe Exotic meme?
Yeah. They shouldn't have put up 7, and then I wouldn't have screamed so much, probably. But
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
Yeah, they just kept pounding it on.
All right, Kyle, Tyrion 11. What's your thoughts?
I mean, we finally get to see some more of his plans in action here, right? Like, I don't remember him prepping to send off. I guess he did kind of mention sending off the mountain men, right? But
I don't
like
think
in
we heard
passing,
anything about this at all. I'm not
Yeah, I
sure.
don't think so either. The last one was about sending guys the gold cloaks to get Tommen.
Yep,
or to
capture
secure
Tommen.
Tommen.
Yep.
yeah. I was kind of confused, and then I did look at the map to see where the Kingswood was because I wasn't completely sure. And that's the map in the beginning of the book, so I didn't cheat.
Yep.
And I saw it was towards Storm's End, so they're going towards Stannis, right?
I don't know, Kyle. That's my assumption. Nelson can.
Yeah, I actually didn't have a map for this chapter, but I think I've shown this map before where basically there's a road that comes up from Storm's End to, I think it's actually the King's Road, right? The King's Road goes the whole way down south through King's Landing and then meets up with what's called
The Rose Road.
Right. Yeah. So the Kingswood is between them and Storm's End. So.
Yeah, so that was. I mean, who else is down there? Stannis. So he's talking.
Yep.
He's sending these people to go and kind of just demoralize them before they even start, right?
Yeah.
I think just like maybe a little bit of guerrilla warfare tactics, maybe steal some supplies.
Yeah,
I don't know
they're not
how
supposed to get in big battles. They're supposed to just, like you said, guerrilla warfare.
Yeah.
Hang the bodies.
Yeah.
Strike some fear into these people. Make some of them turn around because not all of them are loyal to Stannis 100%, right? Some of them just flipped.
Decent, probably a large force, right? Like there was more for Renly than there were for Stannis at the beginning. So theoretically, yeah, some of these people have some loose loyalties.
And they might be like, yeah, fuck it, this isn't worth it. Isn't worth it.
Yep. So we learned that the Black Ears went out 2 nights before, and the Moon Brothers the night before, and now he's saying by. It's kind of weird. I guess maybe it's just quicker if they go by boat across the Blackwater Bay as just walking the road.
Just what do you mean? There's no road. There's a huge bay here.
We literally just talked about a King's Road going
but
right
the King's
through it.
Road starts goes through King's Landing and then just picks up on the other side of this huge bay. There's no
It
crossing.
doesn't look like that on the map, but we'll agree to disagree.
Yeah, I mean, I assume there was a road.
Looks like the road
access
goes
as well.
right outside the bay.
There's no crossing of this bay.
It looks like it goes right around it.
Looks like the road goes around the bay.
Whatever.
Regardless,
I mean, fine. We're not going to argue.
Send these guys.
Quicker, but
I think it's more of an infiltration kind of thing too, right? Like, so you're coming from a direction that they're not quite expecting. You walk down the road.
Sure. All right. Yeah.
Yeah.
They'll probably have a scout or two.
It's just mountain clans going back to what they know, just living in the forest. They probably like this better than living in the city anyway.
For sure. I mean, they're going to attack and loot and whatnot. So
This is what they were waiting for, right?
Yeah. Tyrion goes to give him like some instructions, and he's like, Shagga tells him like, I learned this like before I had hairs on my cheek or something like that.
Yeah.
like
Before my beard, yeah.
Yeah, like this is how we fucking do it in the mountains.
it's also great his threat of "Don't die or I'll feed your body to the goats."
Yeah.
And you're like, little man, half man has no goat.
He's like, I'm gonna get some, and Shaggy just laughs at him. But Tyrion is sending some like not normal, but like soldiers, scouts with him to like who know the area tell him where to watch out, like where the road's going to go, stuff like that, I
Yeah,
guess.
because he says this isn't more mountain clans you're fighting. This is an army.
Yeah.
Right. Like these are people.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
And people that know
trained
the
soldiers.
land better than you too. So
Yeah.
let's learn.
And Shagga agrees to listen to him, so. And then they're off. Shagga disappears into the mist.
They're gone. Tyrion feels a little naked now. Just
Yeah,
lost.
I mean that was his guard, right?
Yeah.
Those were the only real people that he had.
They definitely had his
Like
back
numbers.
since he got to King's Landing for sure. Yeah.
And it's like, I mean, we learn about the sellswords and kind of their loyalty, but the Lannister men, like, he never really had any. Like, they're either his dads or his sisters, really.
Yeah, and he
you know.
he literally like sent Lannister men away to River Run with Cleo's Frey because he didn't trust them and he thought they were like potentially against him for Cersei.
Right.
So yeah, exactly. But yeah, the next thing he gets into is the sellswords, right? He goes and I think Bronn shows up, or he's just thinking about him.
Bronn, I think, was right behind him.
Yeah.
But it's crazy how many, what they call them,
800.
Hirelings.
hirelings. Yeah.
800
800's
of them.
crazy.
Yep.
Holy shit. And that's just 800 more mouths to feed. I mean, imagine that in a
Yeah.
city that's already starving.
And so Tyrion gets into a little bit like this meeting he had with 12 of the best, right? 12 of the like the more Bronly types of these sellswords, I guess. And he promised these guys all, like the really good ones, knighthoods and lands. And they drank his wine and laughed at his jokes and called each other sir. But afterwards, Bronn told them like they'll kill for a knighthood, but don't ever think they're gonna die for one.
Yeah, that's a good ass line.
And Jocelyn gives him some some similar word of advice later, just about the normal city watch. So
Well, yeah.
even within the walls, there's some loyalty problems.
I was just gonna say, yeah, and he kind of not quite the same, but his dad even said that a watchman was not truly a soldier. So like, even though he has these gold cloaks here, that they're still not soldiers either. So like, he has no real protection.
Yeah, I feel like there's a
King's
one or
Landing,
two Tywin-isms here in this that Tyrion thinks about in this
Yeah,
chapter.
the other one's a man on a wall is worth 10 beneath it,
Yeah. So
which he gets into then.
yeah. So
Like he
we knew a
explains.
bunch of people were joining the city watch for food and whatnot, right? They bring it up here again, and for like I think they said 6,000 gold cloaks. Nels, is that number
Yep.
right?
Yep, that's how many about they have.
2,000 of them are actually like trained and like ready to fight.
Well,
So
it's funny.
4,000.
I think it's interesting that Tyrion, like the way Tyrion distinguishes the ones that are like worth anything versus the ones that aren't, is there's 2,000 who got their gold cloaks from Robert Baratheon, and the other 4,000 got them from Cersei. So he thinks that like and I mean that just goes to say like some of them are like veterans too, at least like a year veterans, right?
Yeah, but I think at the same time, he knows Cersei's not a great judge of this kind of stuff because we even see it later with the Kingsguard.
Yeah, and he blames it on Cersei, but I'm sure he like there was a point where Jocelyn's like, yeah, if we just let anybody in and give them food, then we'll have way bigger guards in there. I think Tyrion was like, yeah, fuck it, fine, do it. We need anybody we can take at this point.
I mean, to your point, it's kind of like a cop, right? Like you bring them in, you train them up.
6 months.
If give them a gun and we'll see what
Yeah.
happens. Like you're not going to in a state of war, you're not going to turn people away.
You get much less choosier for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and
So-
if you're talking about too, like the difference between I don't know, we're probably gonna piss off some cops or soldiers, but the difference between a cop and a soldier, right, is the difference between a guardsman, like and a soldier
I don't
in this
know
world,
about
right?
that. I don't know about that. I mean, it's a different job.
Well, that's exactly what.
Well, you can't just
Tywin
send a
was
cop
saying.
into a war zone. He doesn't know like how to do battle.
So let's
ranks
just say
and
like
shit
the
that, make
the
siege
objective
engines.
the objective of the job is a lot different. Like just being a normal city watchman than being a city watchman when it's wartime and you're expected to be in formation and shit will be a lot different than what you're expected to do on the daily.
But you would think theoretically, like even during wartime, you would have soldiers having like garrisons and castles, not just guardsmen, right? Which is part of what Tyrion's
Sure.
saying here. Is we have no army. Sure, we have like a decent number of guardsmen. We have no actual army.
I consider the
Yep.
Lannister men like cavalry and whatnot that are just being
To your
guards,
point,
but-
I bet you a lot of these people are like veterans, right? A lot of the guardsmen are probably retired soldiers, so it's not like they're clueless to this type of stuff. But yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's not quite the same thing.
I mean, listen to Tywin. I said it 3
Yeah.
times now. Watchman was not truly a soldier.
Yeah.
That's really what you're trying to say, Nelson.
I don't think it would piss anybody off. It's a different job. Like we're not just you want to just send a cop to Ukraine and just say, all right,
Yeah, he'd
start
at least
fighting.
go through some boot
you know?
camp or something, right? Like some basic
Right.
training. Yeah.
Yeah, which is hopefully what they've been doing
Yeah.
since they got on. Yeah. So
Bywater kind of warns him. He's like, yeah, I mean, sure, there's a bunch of them, but we don't actually know who we can trust 100%.
Yeah.
Varys has found a decent amount of like traitors within their midst, but even he has like admitted he's not found all of them. And he's like, if they break, they're gonna break fucking hard. The first man who drops down a spear and runs is gonna have 1,000 behind him.
Yeah, nobody wants to be the first, but once that first goes,
yeah, exactly. No one wants to look.
Once
like a
the
coward.
shit hits the fan, I mean, it's falling hard.
Yeah.
So
Tyrion's just like walking through the market now. And the only thing that's really being sold, there's like beggars and whores, but like the only thing that like people care about is fish, right? It's like probably the only food coming into the city. They say like rich people come to the market to try and buy it. Everyone else comes to try and steal it.
I mean, the
just
fish market
from the rich.
We're hoping like a crab falls off and they grab it. You know?
I guess Arya style when she was in Flea Bottom.
The market is popping for fish. You talk about stock rising.
10 times.
10 times as expensive.
Yeah, bad.
Let me get in there. Get some of that.
So they're pushing through the markets, right? Like so essentially they went to the shore to see off the mountain men, right?
Yep.
And then now he's just headed back on.
Yep, going back up the hill.
How about just like someone throws a fish at him, like a rotten fish, and one it explodes. Like I guess a rotten fish would explode. I wouldn't know. I don't know the physics of rotten fish. But like kids with like swollen bellies and shit, like it's
fighting.
not.
It didn't even have to explode. It just had to splatter, you know.
Yeah.
You know.
It's got to be very depressing just walking around.
Yeah, bad situation in the city for sure. So he starts talking into another like bad situation. He looks at like some of the hoardings they're building over the gate, and those are coming along well. But then there's like all this bullshit that they're building along the outside, like.
Well, it's like the general population, right? The markets and like people just finding as all the refugees that came in just trying to find a spot to live.
Yep.
Well, it's not even just that though. It's like, you know, it's shops and bait and just everybody's switching to fishing, so they're all trying to get closer to the water.
I'm wondering too, like there was just a huge fire in the city, right? We heard about it like when the riot kicked off. Like, I wonder if that displaced people and now they're just like those people are here too. But yeah, just like there's a ton of people in the city, not enough room. So
these hoardings that they're building is defensible positions essentially that gets them out over an enemy army.
Yeah,
that would be
like
at the wall.
It's like a covered drawbridge that goes like where battlements would be. You build them like over top of battlements. It's basically what it would. You know what the battlements are? Like
so they can't throw a. So you can stand up there and shoot down, and they can't.
You know that
like,
scene in the Harry Potter movies
climb?
with the really long bridge?
Yeah.
Imagine taking the top of that and putting it on top of battlements. It's basically what hoardings are.
Yeah. It's like
just like a roof on top of battlements, and yeah, it can extend a little bit too. I'll pull it up.
So what's the point of that?
Little bit harder to climb, a good shot to shoot out of, whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, I assumed it was just something that kind of stuck over the wall so that they could be literally over top of this enemy army and just drop alchemist fire on them. But I mean, that could be very.
I'll put some of these pictures in the YouTube and obviously the Discord.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
All right, that's a good hoarding.
So yeah, it's kind of right. It sticks out a little.
But I think my guess is to stop arrows from above. Is where the advantage seems to be there.
Okay.
Or maybe rain if they think it's gonna be raining during the battle to keep rain off of you. I'm serious. Like trying to shoot a bow and arrow, and when it's raining, I bet you that's a huge difference. But yeah, it also looks like the arrows. It makes it so that the arrow slits are a lot smaller.
So Tyrion's basically like, all that shit's got to go. Like,
you're building ladders up the fucking outside of the wall, pretty much.
Tell these people to get the fuck out of these walls because we need them.
I expect there to be bodies here in a month's time, not fucking houses. So yeah, he tells Bronn, get 100 men. Bronn's like, there are people who live here aren't going to like that. He's like, well, no rapes. Try not to kill anybody. He's like, I don't know. Just tell him that's at my command. Give him something else to hate the evil monkey demon for. Like these guys, you can't compensate all these guys. So just like, fuck it. Tell them it's too bad.
Burn them to the ground.
Yeah. Bronn says some may fight. Tyrion says, make sure they lose.
Make sure they lose. Good line. He's got the witty comebacks, man. He's just good at that shit. News of Winterfell is my next thing. I forget who gives it to him.
Nobody. He just said he remembers.
Okay.
Because he's pretty much thinking like, I wish the walls were bigger, and then he's like, well, I felt safe as shit inside Winterfell, and look, that's down too. That's down now too.
And just Harrenhal being the tallest, and Storm's End being the thickest, and they've all fallen. So it's like, castles. what the fuck's the point of having a big castle? But yeah, Winterfell has fallen, and he thinks of Robb, and I think the biggest thing about Robb is the thought that he's gonna go he's not going to fight. He's not going to be fighting in the South anymore, right? Like,
I actually think the biggest thing about Robb is here he shows his kind of his reverence for Robb, where he's and the Starks in general. He's like, that's always going to belong to a Stark. Like that place is not. It can't be anybody else's.
Yeah, he like catches himself. He's like, I shouldn't care about this. He's like, fuck it, good thing. Good, it's a good thing it's taken.
Yeah, but I mean, he still goes into it though. Why he cares? He's like, that place is definitely theirs.
And as long as the Stark's alive, right? Like it's gonna be hard to take the North without a fight, type of thing.
He remembers Theon, a callow youth, always smiling, skilled with the bow. It's hard to imagine him as Lord of Winterfell.
Yeah, and then he thinks about his time there, and more or less, like I think he's seeing some shit that was made by like some big oaks, and he's like, well, the North was full of oaks, and especially the Sentinels and the big tree, the fucking heart tree.
Yeah, he says that Godswood was Winterfell, and that Godswood was the North. Or, I guess it is right.
And he never felt more an unwelcome intruder than when he was there.
Yeah, it's kind of badass.
Yeah. I'd like to see, like, it's cool to kind of think of a forest. And I think we've shown pictures of it and whatnot, but like an actual forest, like it's not a little fucking grove.
Yeah, so I don't know if we've really talked about this, and I don't know if it's a spoiler or from the world books or whatever, but I don't think it like has any impact on the plot. Just like kind of cool lore about Winterfell. The Godswood, like Winterfell was built around the Godswood, like the tree, like around that tree. They just like basically took like a lot of acreage around that old weirwood, and that's where they made like that was kind of why they picked that spot for the castle. And to Jeff's point, it's a third the size. Like the outer walls go the entire way around the Godswood, and out of the interior, like all the area covered by the outer walls, a third of that area is Godswood. So yeah, it's a massive portion of the if you're counting what's inside the castle, inside the walls, it's a third of that. So yeah, huge.
So he returns to the Tower of the Hand, and
he gets through the Mudgate, sees the first line of defense pretty much is the trebuchets.
Yeah, the three horse.
But they only made 3 of them though. Like, come on.
They're bigger than any trebuchet you've ever seen.
So, like, it doesn't matter how big your trebuchet is.
Would you rather have one big trebuchet or a lot of small ones?
Probably a lot. I mean, it has to go over the wall, but he just got through saying that this isn't a super tall wall. Yeah, so.
Yeah, I mean, 3 just seems like not enough. That's all.
And they're just throwing rocks, right? Like, what else would they throw?
That's usually what it is.
And the men took to calling these big trebuchets what?
The horse.
Why?
Because they're going to fuck Stannis.
They're going to give Stannis such a lusty welcome. Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah, that's
I forgot what
Stannis.
Yeah.
So, yeah, now he gets back to the Red Keep inside his Tower of the Hand. He's got people waiting for him.
Yeah, he's got some traders that are pissed off because he took all their ships and added them to the Royal Navy.
Yes. They're not happy. He basically says, okay, I'll give you, like, I don't know what to tell you. You'll be compensated after the war. Thank you.
Like, well, what if you lose?
Ask Stannis.
Ask Stannis for the compensation.
Pretty much just fuck you, give me your ship and get out.
So that meeting made him late for the new appointment of the new Kingsguard members. So there's 2 new Kingsguard members, which is interesting because only one Kingsguard has died.
And what was his name again?
The one who died was Sir Preston Greenfield, died in the the Ride of King's Landing.
The Horde got his ass.
Yeah, smashed his head when he was trying to protect the High Septon.
But wasn't the other one the prisoner?
So they talk about it here. Yeah, the other one was Sir Boros Blunt, and Cersei decloaked him because
for being a pussy.
We don't really hear what happened, but it seems like when Jacelyn showed up to take Tommen, he was like, "Okay, fine, deal, take him.
Here's my sword."
Yeah. So I mean, who knows? Maybe he's put up more of a fight than that, but whatever he didn't satisfy Cersei. Bywater
and the Goldcloaks weren't going to harm Tommen, so there wasn't really anything to fight for. But Cersei's honor, yeah, right, or Cersei's command.
Yeah, I guess, like, is there anything he could have done there except for die that would have basically made Cersei happy? I don't know.
Yeah,
but it's kind of funny.
It's definitely funny, but I think it again just shows Cersei like he didn't do what I wanted. He's gone. Like, yeah. Which it was a stupid ass. Like there was no. Yeah. He's not in a good situation.
He's locked up at Rosby.
I'm actually kind of surprised that she isn't more mad at Tyrion about this.
Yeah, we don't really hear that part. She's mad enough to take fucking Boros's cloak away, but she's not mad enough to. We don't hear she does anything to Tyrion.
He didn't mention. Maybe she just hasn't expressed it.
Yeah.
Or
I mean, he's like at this knighting or whatever. I mean, it's not
Yeah.
knighting, but you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not like he's avoiding her or
Yeah.
like barred from
and
being
he's got
anywhere
some
near
spies
her.
behind her that would tell, like, oh, she's really pissed at you. But at the end of the day, they're doing the same thing.
What do you mean?
Like, the
They're on
whole
the same
point was to
side.
get Tommen away in case it falls, and
Tyrion's the one
Tommen's-
just in charge now instead of Cersei.
yeah.
Which is like completely circumventing her. So that's why I just assumed she would be more mad than this.
Yeah, I got you.
But anyway, so Sir Balin Swan takes place in Greenfield. I've definitely heard his name, don't remember, but I'm like, I know this guy.
He's been around. He's just like a knight who's basically always around. I think
He might have been at the tourney or something.
he was there during the Ride of King's Landing. I'm sure he was at the tourney. He's probably like in a lot of like the feast or like any council chamber, or not council chamber, but like council room area. Like he's just always like one of the members of the court. But I'm pretty sure at one point in the past, one of us had slipped up and said Balon Swan was a Kingsguard, like in like a non-spoiler. Probably got edited out.
I blame Glow.
I wouldn't doubt it if it was me, because like I knew that this guy became like
Yeah,
a
I
Kingsguard.
wouldn't have remembered that name. But,
I feel like that's
like if you said
enough
like
to-
name all 7, I'd be like, "Brr."
yeah. So the other one who's taking the place of so we get a little bit more backstory on like the Swans and what's going on with them for the war. So Balon's here. His older brother was with Renly, is probably now a Stannis. And Tyrion thinks that like if the father had a third son, he'd probably be with Robb. He thinks it's not the most honorable course of action, but it's not stupid either.
hedging your bets.
Yeah, no matter what, you'll come out a winner, basically.
It's pretty crazy. Like, Dad's like, all right, I'm not betting. Son, you bet on black, you bet on red. Like, one of you's fucked. Type of thing. Like, you're both not winning, probably.
But he's hoping that whoever wins is going to spare the other one, right? Like, I mean, so he's kind of like hoping that no matter what happens, they're going to all be alive. It's what it sounded like to me.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, just in terms of like his credentials, Tyrion thinks that Balon's like not too bad of a choice for Kingsguard. He's well-born, young, valiant, courtly, skilled at arms, good with a lance, better with a morning star, superb with a bow, and he should serve with honor and courage. So Tyrion thinks pretty highly of this guy.
Yeah. Tell me about Osmond Kettleback. How about him? What are his credentials?
Next one. Yeah, not as big of a fan. He looks scary, 6'6", all sinew and muscle, hooked nose, bushy eyebrows, and a spade-shaped brown beard that gave him a fierce look, as long as he didn't smile. But this is one of the guys we touched on in the last Tyrion chapter, or the Tyrion chapter before that. He's one of like the sellswords that Cersei had hired, I think him and his brother. So that's pretty much how he got this job. But we hear in that chapter that... Go ahead, Kyle.
I was just going to say, yeah, and he's already selling secrets to Tyrion at this point. So, like, she doesn't know enough about him, obviously, if she's putting him in this position.
Shows you how loyal a sellsword is.
Yep.
Yeah.
Getting paid from both ends, too. That's awesome.
That's where they get into some of the Boros Blunt stuff. And the one funny quote here is he had yielded up his charge with an alacrity that would have enraged old Sir Barristan Stelmy as much as it did Cersei. So, I mean, to your point, Jeff, like, yes, it seems like there was no reason to fight. But that's kind of what makes me think he just like did it so like unceremoniously, like, okay, take him, I don't want to fight.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
Like didn't even get.
Yeah, I agree. Like it couldn't have been just like
you got to draw your sword, and Jackson's got to be like, "There's no need to fight, sir," and you can be like, and then maybe
like
talk it
let
out from
me
there, but, like,
send the raven to the queen or,
yeah, or something,
like
yeah.
So Selmy is the one that got kicked out, right? He got
the
demoted or
old man that-
cloaked.
Yep.
Yeah.
Joffrey because he was too old, or is it too old? Like two,
Yeah, he was just
two
old. and he
kings
was
had died.
Roberts and-
Seems like they needed a spot for the Hound on the council too, so or on the King's Guard was part of it.
Yeah, but he was like the top one, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but they got him out, jump Jamie to that spot, and then just
Yeah,
put
yeah,
Hound.
yeah. I understand. I'm just saying that, like, I mean, like, he wasn't a nobody.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh yeah, he was the guy.
No, he was the leader for two kings.
Which is why, like, even Renly, when Kat went to visit Renly was like, "Is he with you? Because he's not with me."
Yeah.
So,
Where the fuck
Yeah,
is
so he's
he?
out there somewhere.
he's out there
you're right.
somewhere.
He's retired, just chilling on a farm.
So other than there, Tyrion's chilling, and he's taking a peep, looking around, getting on his tiptoes, and he sees Lady Tanda, but no
No
Lollies and no Shay. But we basically
Lawless or Lawless
Lawless, whatever. We get confirmation that plan is basically
working.
seemingly worked out.
Yeah.
She's there with Lollies now because if Tyrion's looking for her. So
Unfortunately, she's lost a couple of gowns and jewelry along the way, but
yeah, they talk about
Tyrion's
that
holding it for
conversation
her.
real quick. Yeah, you can't be dressed fancier than the person you're serving, but
Well, then you just look like a thief. Or
Yeah.
like,
you can
Well,
play
that's
you can play dress up when you're in my room. Is basically what he tells her.
yeah. Which we haven't had a Shay Tyrion encounter yet.
Nope. Well, I mean, last chapter was the one where they were setting all this shit
I'm
up.
saying,
right?
like, since her new role.
So everybody leaves, and Tyrion stays behind to talk to High Septon number 2 because the first High Septon died in the Riding King's Landing.
Yeah, he was getting his entrails eaten like a zombie apocalypse.
I don't know if he's getting them eaten, but yeah, he got fucked up.
Wasn't he like ripped open? Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, shit. If you're hungry, you might fry
you're
up
eating
some.
rotten
Yeah.
fish. You might eat a person.
Maybe
Yeah.
the priest. Yeah.
Might fry up his liver or something.
So High Septon 2, Tyrion has appointed this guy. So
Yeah.
Tyrion thinks he's going to listen to him because he knows how he got his job. So basically, Tyrion tells him, we get some information here. Stannis burned the Godswood in Storm's End. We were just talking about Godswood. Stannis burned the Godswood in Storm's End, at least what Tyrion tells this guy. And his point is basically tell everyone in the city that if they revolt or decide that they want Stannis as king, they're against the gods as well as Joffrey because Stannis hates all gods. He burned the 7 at
The new and the
at
old.
Dragonstone, burned the Godswood at Storm's End. Yeah, exactly.
So if you're a godly man, you're on Team Joffrey.
Well, and he doesn't even know that he burned the 7.
Yeah, I don't think Tyrion mentions that here, but
Well, he said, like, why would he spare the new if he didn't
Yeah.
care about the old?
Yeah,
But you're right.
you're right.
I forgot about that. So yeah, he has pretty much said no to both of them.
I'm pretty sure Tyrion knows that because I feel like they talked about it in a council chamber beforehand. But yeah, I don't know why he would.
You would think he would mention it instead of
you'd think he
assume it,
would.
like Kyle said. I kind of agree with Kyle's line of thinking. All right, so that's basically the only thing he wants to talk to him about, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yep.
Heads
He
back
says
to
pretty
his
much
room.
get the gods on my side.
Yeah.
Heads
So,
back to his room, and old man Pyromancer's there.
but he makes him wait a little bit to read a couple letters. Nothing super important. First one is from Doran Martell. It's the late. He says the letter's late, but basically it's just news of Storm's End.
Yep.
The other letter was a little more interesting. That one was from Baelal Greyjoy, basically offering an alliance and like wanting to do a border dispute. It seems like have like a meeting, talk about the new borders of their kingdoms. And Tyrion's like, their ships would have been useful, but it's a little too late for that. I don't know what to do with this.
And it's like, are we really going to give up the North that easily to this fucking island of,
Well,
a
right now
navy,
it's
basically?
useful.
Yeah, 'cause
Yeah,
they're
for
about to-
sure.
Yeah.
But like, it wouldn't be like if you're gonna like, all right, like you're on our side now, like you can have the North, like they want the North. They don't really care about the Iron Islands, but
Yeah, but I guess what I'm saying is that you lie to him now, get him on your side, and then deal with him after.
Yeah.
where's the honor in that?
Is there enough
Tyrion?
time though? He's got to go the whole way around the continent. Is kind of what
Well,
Tyrion's
that's
saying.
what he said.
Yeah.
Yeah, he said his ships are on the wrong coast.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's like, I'll give this one to Cersei or the council. Let them deal with this one. And that's when he goes and sees a pyromancer. So what's up with the pyromancer, Kyle?
He's got way more jars than Tyrion ever could have expected him to have. So they found it was like 300. I thought it was going to be a lot, but it was like 300 under the dragon pit.
Yeah. So the total number is 13,000 that Tyrion reads. And yeah, so that's why you're saying you expect it to be a little bit more than 300. But yeah, they found 300.
How much did they have in storage before Tyrion got them to start working for him?
I thought it was like 2,000.
It was low thousands. I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, it was.
Yeah, I don't
maybe.
remember.
I don't think it was. If it was higher than 5,000, it wasn't much.
The production of, let's say, 11,000 or 10,000 minus 300, like 9,700 in a couple months is pretty crazy.
I would say I think it was probably closer to 5,000 is what they had, like 4,000 to 6,000 is
All
probably
right,
what they had
so
earlier.
7,000.
But still, they've done like just as they've almost doubled. They've pretty much doubled in my mind, if not a little more than doubled in like a month or two.
I kind of equate this to like potion making. Like, so you have a cauldron, like
Alchemy.
each, yeah, same deal. But like, you're making a bigger batch in a cauldron, I'm thinking, and maybe pouring them into some jars.
Just
or
use a bigger cauldron, is what you're saying.
no, I'm just trying to I'm just trying to do a math of like how many jars can they actually make a day? Like, what was the expected amount versus like, oh, we're at 1,300. Like, he's like, well, what the fuck were you guys doing earlier? Because he assumes they were just slacking off like in the beginning, and now they just like found some motivation.
So I went back to count from my notes is 7,840 including 4,000 from Ares Day.
Okay.
He estimates they should be able to provide a full 10,000. So he estimates that they should be able to do like another 2,000 more, and instead he does 5,000 more. So again, he's doubling. He's over doubling.
We were way underestimating, but okay. They do talk about the guy that drank one.
Brief
it's the second person to drink one.
Fell through the cellar and thought it was wine.
Well, I meant and then the prince, because they talked about him before. I feel like
they did mention the prince that I forget he had a nickname. What was the nickname of the prince that drank the wildfire?
Arian Bright Flame. So yeah, he drank. I'm not sure. I can go see. We heard of him. We heard basically at least whatever story of him we heard in the Jon chapter. When Gior was telling Jon like a whole info dump about the Targaryens because of Aemon.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
The new king summoned all his sons to court, and he would have made Aemon part of his council, but he refused, saying he would usurp the place rightly belonging to the Grand Maester. Instead, he served at the keep of his eldest brother, another Daeron. Well, that one died too. And again, we've read the first Dunk and Egg with Kyle.
Yep.
That's That's Egg's brother Daeron.
Oh, the drunk?
The drunk. Okay. Right. Well, that one died too, leaving only his feeble-witted daughter as heir. Some pox caught from a whore, I believe. The next brother was Arion. Arion the Monstrous. Jon knew the name. The prince who thought he was a dragon. Was one of old Nan's more gruesome tales. His little brother Bran had loved it. The very one, though he named himself Arian Brightflame. One night in his cups he drank a jar of wildfire after telling his friends it would transform him into a dragon. But the gods were kind and it transformed him into a corpse. So yeah, that's what we know.
And we said like it didn't like engulf him in flames, right? Like he basically drank like
we definitely
gasoline.
talked about this, but yeah, whatever it did, it turned him into a corpse.
I think it was like drinking poison.
I think it can't be. I think this has to be conclusive because if this guy fell into an area with 300 jars and drank some and burst into flames, you don't think they would be able to recover.
They would all
those
burst in flame,
yeah.
right? So, an internal poison. Yeah. I agree.
A little less cool, but still.
So Tyrion's like, "What the fuck happened? Like, you guys were either slacking off or like, tell me how has this happened?" And he's like, "Well, our spells. We have some old spells that seem to be working again."
Yeah. Tyrion's like, "I know you got fucking spells.
We're not working any harder. Trust me. We're working at the same union rate."
Well, no, he says we are working harder. And Tyrion's like, "Well, if you're working harder, why weren't you working more before?" He's like, we got better. We're more practiced at it because we've been doing it a lot." But yeah, then he gets into saying that the spells are just better now.
Well, why would there be, are there any? Have you seen any dragons about?
Which kind of confuses the hell out of me. Like, Tyrion gets all this other information. They had information about, Dany being with child and whatnot. How do they not have any information that there's dragons east?
I'd have to assume that there's been word of it, but whether people believe it is another thing, right? Like,
but he didn't even say. He said, "Not unless you found one under the dragon pit." He didn't say, "Well, there is word that."
My thing would be because Jorah's
medieval times. You're getting a letter from. It's like Europe getting a letter from Asia about there being dragons in medieval times, right? Like, do you buy it?
You don't trust Varys?
Did Varys say that?
Has Varys not gotten word
Who
yet?
else gets all the information from?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Maybe Varys is the one screening it. Somebody has to decide if it's true or not, and then pass it on. Whoever
it came from Jorah.
True.
Well, that's the thing. Like, was Jorah still informing at this time?
He was informing when she was pregnant.
Yeah, right.
And then the next day she had eggs that hatched.
But he also saved her from the wine cellar before the eggs hatched. Like, when people talk about this, people think that like if like Jorah basically chose a side, it was around that time, around like the wine cellar time. Okay. But again, it's like we don't fucking know. That's like I could see where you're coming from. There's no evidence that he did or didn't tell Varys about the dragons, but Varys hasn't told us. So
I just feel like that is like the biggest news in the realm right now.
Yeah. We also know that Varys doesn't tell everything. Not that again, big news. It seems that he slips through. Like the evidence of that was he was holding on to this Lady Tanda's daughter's bedmaid is stealing jewels. That's the thing that we knew he was holding on to, right? So that's like the evidence that he doesn't just tell stuff. Exactly, but theoretically he can do it to big stuff too.
Yeah, I just like I said, I feel like that should have been something that would have got back to them. But either way. Regardless,
like anyone that, like the rumor has definitely made its way around the east. To Kyle's point, like everyone's like, "Oh, she has dragons. Let's see them."
They were fucking selling them as a sideshow over there. They weren't hiding them or anything. You know, they're being pretty open about it.
Yeah.
So she carries them around everywhere. So,
let me also go to the timeline.
That kind of explains why there's more magic happening, I guess, right? Like, so last book I probably complained a little bit at least that there was none.
Right.
But, or very minimal.
What you said was you wanted it to be consistent.
Yeah, and so now that they say that the dragons strengthen magic, and here they are. We have dragons, and we're seeing people climb ladders. Which didn't
Flame
that lady say
ladders.
that hasn't been done in a while or something like that?
Well,
Yeah.
that guy's never been able to do it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, exactly.
So I mean, there's kind of some proof that it's impacting
Yep.
things.
Yep. So
I will say that Danny got to Karth only like a few months ago, like maybe 3 months prior to where we are now. So that's when she really hit place where this could travel from. And when she was in Karth, she got news of Robert's death, right? Like that's the latest news that Danny's up to date with, which has to be. First off, again, she's not getting like all the news. She's getting she's getting the big things. To your point, dragons are big. So you think that would go the other way. But again, she's like a year behind in news. And again, only been in
I
Karth for 3
also
months.
think that Varys has a more direct channel of information than anybody else.
Magic Channel?
No, I didn't say that. That guy came and met him here.
I'm just saying Danny's been in the fucking desert. So unless you're like seeing a vision of her while you're dreaming or something.
unless you're a desert coyote.
I'm just saying that I think he has. If anybody's gonna get something fast, it's gonna be Varys.
Varys has a shot.
gotcha,
I
yeah.
agree. All right. So another thing that's just kind of caught my eye was that it didn't magic didn't stop completely right after the last strike. Like at least they said
That's what they said. It faded.
it faded away. So it was almost gone.
So he pretty much just says, "Look, man, if you're selling me fake shit and it's filled with just water or empty jars or whatever, like you're gonna die as well.
You're fucked."
Snake oil salesman Helene over here.
King's Justice will come see you."
Yeah, that's who you're gonna see instead of fucking dragons.
Yeah, and then so he pieces out super fast, almost runs over Lord Jacqueline, Jacelyn, whatever you want to call him.
I call him Bywater because it's a lot easier. Yep, Bywater comes in. We get a Tommen update.
We came back with more men, right?
Yeah, he brought a little bit men from Rosby. I can't imagine much. Rosby's not a huge castle, but he brought some men from Rosby.
Tommen's
Anybody
pumped.
counts.
Yep, and he doesn't really have much news, right? Just literally report on Tommen.
He's being treated like a
Tommen's
king.
living
pretty
the
much.
dream. Yeah,
He adopted a fawn, a baby deer, and he's
kind
happy
of a
because
weird
last
pet.
time,
But
because last time Joffrey killed it and made a jerky out of it. Last time we had a fawn.
how long can you actually have a fawn before it's just like? I mean, I guess people actually do have.
That cabin we were at in the Poconos, there was
Yeah.
deer that was coming up. We were feeding them out of our hand.
Yeah, till that deer just like back kicks you like.
I'm just saying. I
Into
guess
the
like in
wall.
medieval time, like if you just don't kill them,
Yeah,
feed
so
them, they come
well,
up to you.
I mean, there were people up the road from my house growing up that had a deer that was like, I mean, it wasn't their pet, but it was like their friend. And they always put a
Yeah.
bandana on it during like hunting season and stuff, so nobody shot it.
Yeah, and my buddy
Wow,
from high
that's
school,
wild.
I think my buddy from high school, I think his like his wife's family like have like a deer farm where they have like acres of land with a big fence, and they basically like raise deer, and then they let like rich people come in and shoot big bucks on their land to like tell people they got a big buck, but it's like not real. I mean, it's a real buck that grew up like a buck, but it just basically didn't
it
have
was
any.
just fenced
Yeah,
in.
it was fenced in.
Like, hey, go shoot this guy over here.
Yeah, and you probably shoot it and don't tell your friends that it was fenced in. But yeah, so I mean, maybe it's like that. I'm sure you could probably feed some of those deer out of your hand. I mean, maybe not if they're getting hunted, but you know what I mean.
I do know what you mean.
You could domesticize
So
them.
pretty much, he says like you made plan. Well, he says that he misses Marcella a little bit, but he doesn't finish his letters. Not enough to finish any of his letters, but he doesn't give a shit about Joffrey.
Yeah, it does not miss him.
Fuck Joffrey.
Which, yeah, just kind of, we didn't really get much of their relationship, but it shows just kind of, he was probably a dick to him as well.
Yep. So then I think we talked about this too. He says basically like, tell me the plan for like what happens if we lose. Like, what do you do with Tommen?
Well, at first he's like, our plan's in place. Like, is it
Yeah.
ready to go in case we lose? And he's like, all right, like tell me again what it was, just so I know we're on the same page. And it's like, nope, not gonna do that. That was the test.
He's like, you
He
passed
said,
my
you
test.
told me
Yeah.
not to tell anyone.
Yep. So I mean, but last time I was like, this is stupid. You're taking Tommen to a castle right next to King's Landing. Like it's a horrible place to hide him. Like it's like one of the first places Stannis would look. But here they're pointing out that there is a plan for what to do with him if we lose, like get him further or something like that, probably. So
Yeah, get him the hell out of there.
Yeah. And then that's basically it, right? Like
Bywater leaves. Varys comes in, and we hear about this list of people calling themselves the Antler Men.
I just love Varys. Men are such faithless creatures, so much villainy. It sings sad songs of our age. Did honor die with our fathers? Just like he's so like just like
He's poetic, over the top.
We see him like level with Tyrion. Like at the end of the last chapter, he's just like talking to Tyrion. Like it's normal, but like when they're in the castle, like when they're like in the court roles, like so over the top, just playing the Varys role. I love it.
He's extra.
Oh, such villainy. Yeah.
So what are these antlered men gonna do? Or planning to do?
Basically, they call themselves antlered men because they like Stannis and they like the crowned stag. And Tyrion even like says like someone should tell him he changed his fucking sigil. They can call themselves the Hot Hearts or something because he's not even a stag anymore. Well, he looked at the note. And it's like some like actual important people. It's not just like a bunch of peasants. It's like rich people. Yeah, who if Tyrion knows the names of them, they're relatively important within the city, right? So
right. Yeah, probably the most important one is the one that we actually hear the name of.
The Master Armorer.
Yeah, Solorian, the only one we've really heard before. And he's the one who, when Tyrion brought all the armors in and was like, start making chains, he was like, how about we just make you this fancy demon armor instead? And Tyrion thinks something like, if Jaime's armor is made of gold and mine's a demon, what's that say about me or something like that? But
whatever.
Orders his arrest.
They're fucked. And that's it.
That's it.
So basically just like what's going on at King's Landing, catch everybody up in King's Landing chapter. Nothing crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like everything's kind of at a halt, standstill.
Yeah.
Currently,
calm.
Yeah,
they're in a holding pattern. How's that?
Yeah, I like that. And they got a shit ton of wildfire.
Yep. So, I mean...
More than they expected.
That can't go bad, right?
Never does.
Is that your prediction?
Yeah, can't go bad.
Okay.
Facetiously saying.
Nothing bad's going to go happen with the wildfire. Noted.
All right. Lock it in. Kyle, any crazy...
I did have one here. So I think eventually they're going to figure out that how Stannis is doing his shit, right? Because, like, he briefly touched on it in this chapter, but I think they're going to utilize the whole, and it's kind of set up the whole Davos chapter we had, where somebody's going to figure out that, like you just sleep in the shadows essentially, and that thing can't get you.
That'd be badass.
So
yeah, Tyrion kind of did say like, how are all these strong ass castles falling? And only one of the ones he mentions, like Harrenhal, Winterfell, Storm's End, only one of them fell that way. But like all of them are kind of falling to trickery.
In weird ways.
Theon's was the most straight up one, and just because he did it at nighttime was really all he did, and he waited until the castle was empty.
And there was no one there to guard it.
Who did he say it to? I forget, but he said, "Gods give with one hand and take with the other." Essentially, so like Robb took Harrenhal, but they gave up.
I think he was talking about Theon.
Yeah,
right? He was talking about Robb. Yeah.
No, it was Robb.
Yeah.
Like they got the Starks got Harrenhal, but lost.
I think he was just thinking to himself. Yeah, because I don't think he was talking about that to anybody.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I'm saying is like. So some of this stuff has to balance out, right? Like, I mean, Stannis can't just roll through everybody. That's my opinion, at least, obviously. And that's what you're here for.
once you leave somewhere, like you're probably leaving it less occupied than.
Yeah, and I don't know that anybody's going to go to Storm's End just yet. I think they have bigger stuff to deal with, and I don't think anybody cares nearly as much about Storm's End as Stannis. But
it was personal.
Yeah, so I don't know that that's the case, but it's just more of like, I don't think Stannis can just keep plowing through everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I'm in this weird spot internally where it's like, I don't know between Stannis and Tyrion. I don't like either of them in that sense, like I don't want either of them to have, because if Tyrion's in power, then that means the Lannisters are in power.
You don't like Stannis? Stannis is my boy.
I mean, he's doing some weird shit right now, man.
Yeah, but he's rightful one.
He's had 2 shadow kids.
By any means necessary is Stannis' motto.
And we talked about that last time too. Like, there has to be some downside to this. I feel like this whole.
You know what's? Yeah, sorry, go.
No, just the whole birthing of demon babies that are long and slender and can sneak through bars and shit like that.
You know what's kind of crazy is that we haven't heard what happens to the shadow baby after they've committed.
Yeah.
I also kind of want to say, now that we've kind of heard it, that we've been saying that there's been like more and more magic in this book for sure. And it kind of goes into, well, the dragons were born the very last chapter of the last book, right? The really only magic at all before that was the Mirmaz door shit, where she was dancing in the tent, which happened like prior to that, right? But really all the shadow baby stuff, like Who knows? Maybe last year Mel couldn't like Stannis, Mel, whatever that situation is, couldn't do any of that shit.
True.
Weird to think about.
Yeah.
Even the Bran stuff, whether like that falls in the same category, whether that's just like Bran was always going to be able to do that, or like having the summer dreams. That's like a only this book thing too. It seems like a kind of where he was going. Yeah.
Nah, I mean he fell and was having Raven to pick his head and shit.
He was having weird dreams, but yeah. I guess
But
you're
who's
right.
to say he got it this far without the dragons? Is what Nelson's saying.
Yeah.
I know what you're saying. I agree.
All right, let's wrap it up.
Yeah. Nobody wants to listen to my voice anymore. Hopefully it's better by next week.
The last episode was the longest episode we've ever published. The Danny one.
I don't think this one will be.
I don't think this one will be either. But we'll see
All right.
Kyle in the next one. And we'll see the rest of you guys in the spoiler section. Bye, Kyle.
Bye,
Later,
Kyle.
nerds.
Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! See you later, Kyle. Thanks for hanging out with us. Now, boys, on to the spoiler section of Tyrion 11. What are your hot takes?
I don't really have much. I think we just really talk about like what happens like in the near future. Like, so the Antler
Yeah,
Men.
right.
Do you remember what happens with the Antler Men?
I don't.
This is basically how Tyrion just uses it as a distraction for Joffrey during the battle. He's like, Joffrey like wants to throw him off the trebuchets, the 3 horse. So he starts just launching for a while. Like once they're on the wall, they watch the wildfire go off. That's a Davos chapter. Then it becomes a Tyrion chapter. Basically, he's like, oh my God, this is horrible. Everything's burning. Like, obviously he knew it, but he's like, everyone's dying. And then he's like, okay, Joffrey, I got some shit to do. Go have your fun with the 3 horse. So it's kind of like Shrek and Donkey, where Fiona's like, Donkey, I need some blue flowers, red thorns.
Yeah.
And he's like, what were the
Blue flowers, red
for?
thorns.
What were the blue flowers for?
Blue flowers, red thorns. Blue flowers, red
To
thorns.
get rid of Donkey.
Get rid of Donkey. So he throws the dead bodies or live bodies?
So he says that they nailed it. He's like, Tyrion says that like Joffrey goes down to the bodies where they had nailed the antlers to their heads. So can they be alive or not?
They could be alive for a little bit.
I mean, Jorg in the Emperor of Thorns or the Broken Empire series, the Prince of Thorns, King of Thorns, Emperor of Thorns.
Don't spoil.
He said it already. He drives several nails into a Septon's head, and he just says like, "Oh, you'll like when you drive a nail into a man's head, it changes him." He's like, he'll start talking funny at first, and then after a few, he doesn't know his own name anymore. Like, so I'm picturing there's a way they could do it where these guys are alive, but I'm not sure.
I mean, they might be alive for a little bit. I don't know how long they'll be alive for.
Yeah. So the interesting thing about this is it kind of comes up later. So in that chapter, they talk about how, okay, Joffrey, have your fun, but we're going to eventually need to throw rocks again because the bodies go way too far. Like it was almost just fun. Like the men wanted to see if the bodies would go the entire way across. So the other thing is you said you're like, there's a road here. Like, no, there's no road. The whole point of the Blackwater Bay battle is the ships have to come in here to ferry the army across. That's like the whole point of this battle.
That's not.
The ships have to come in to ferry Stannis' army across.
I mean, there's definitely a road.
There's a road on both sides of the bay.
The King's Road doesn't just run into the water.
There's probably a dock.
You don't think it goes around the King's Road or around?
It's a huge bay. What do you mean? There's like a huge bay that comes into a big river, the Blackwater Rush, that goes up towards River Rush.
So you go to where it's not huge and build a bridge. What do you mean?
I think that's pretty far past. I think it's pretty ways upstream.
I'm saying it might be far and out the way, but there's got to be a road. Like the road just doesn't stop. The map in our book at least has a road going around the Blackwater Bay.
It doesn't. In the
it
book.
does, dude. I'm looking. I just looked at it in the book.
This road goes right over the water.
No, it doesn't. It goes right around it.
So okay. The confusion here is what we're calling Blackwater Bay. It's going above Blackwater Bay there. The river is thick as fuck. Let me.
So you're talking about Blackwater Rush, not the bay. Well, that's different. We're talking about the bay and the fucking. We're literally saying bay. Right. So I think you should put this picture,
the big one,
in the Discord. Yeah, the one where you actually see that the road does end at the water. Like,
yeah, sure.
Because it's confusing when I was just thinking the bay. Like,
I gotcha.
I didn't see the Blackwater Rush River is a lot smaller in our book. And I thought you were talking about the bay.
So even in the map that I sent, I think that's way too close because I think it's way too easy for... I mean, it can't be too far because it does get formed by a bridge of ships, right? A bridge of ships forms, and that's how the army ends up getting across. I think this picture could be pretty accurate. The only thing I think is wrong here is I think the dock and ships in this picture are drawn absurdly large just to show that they're ships, right?
Right.
Just compare like the ships to the towers. The ships are as big as the fucking gate is.
I mean, that based off of your picture, it literally looks like you jump off of your ship.
Exactly, and across. And again, it's not. It can't be too much bigger than that. I just think that if anything, the ships are drawn out of scale. That's the only thing wrong. This ship is half the size of King's Landing or of the Red Keep.
You can see it. So, like, where's the chain go?
So scroll to the right of the big picture. You see these 2 winch towers.
Okay.
And Davos even talks about in the Davos chapter of Blackwater Bay, when they're rolling up, he's like, oh, those are new.
Yeah.
He's like, I know King's Landing in the back of my hand, and those fuckers are new.
Basically, the plan is to let them get past those 2 towers because they can't climb the mountain, right? They need to get to the Mudgate.
So I listened to the Davos and Tyrion, the first 2 chapters of Blackwater Bay today. And basically the plan is, it seems like Tyrion sacrifices the whole fleet, at least most of his own fleet.
Yeah.
Because Stannis has so many ships. I started making the map for this battle. Like, you know how I like to make the map for the battles we have POVs in?
Yeah.
Like 100 ships. I'd make 100 different ships on the map. And Davos names...
You didn't have to. You get to.
Davos names so many of them. So I'm working on that. But they all go in. Tyrion says maybe 20 don't go in, but Davos says like they all go inside those winches, right? So again, how are you fitting 200 men inside the picture I sent if that river's not a little bit bigger? 200 ships.
Right.
So
it's got to be big.
But at the beginning, it's actually fighting. Like Davos is fighting other Lannister ships.
Yeah, so they've got a handful of ships out there.
And what Tyrion thinks is if we didn't, basically when it switches to the Tyrion chapter, he's like, oh my God, I just killed all these men. If we didn't send the men out first, they never would have come inside the winch towers. Yeah. It's basically what Tyrion's telling himself. Because then in the Davos chapter at the end, the fucking wildfire explodes, everything goes up in fire, and by then Davos basically is in the water and goes to swim out to the sea. He's like, the river's flowing out to sea. I'm just going to get out to sea. I'll be safe anyway. But he looks and there's just a huge wall of burning smashed ships because they raised the winch chain.
I think another thing that changes the perspective is the show kind of makes it look like they just come in off the bay and then right up to the castle, not the Mudgate.
Like everything is going down very close to King's Landing, like you saw in that picture, inside that river. So like Tyrion's on the walls, Joffrey's on the walls. Right. They all see it. Tyrion's like literally smacking Joffrey's visor down, like, you fucking idiot. I know we're not getting arrows shot at us, but we are in range of arrows. Get your fucking visor down. You're the king. Like, it's all right there. Like, you're right. In the show, it's like out there. Like Tyrion throws a fucking. It might be like 2 or 3 people throw torches. It doesn't feel like the
Mudgate. Right, the Mudgate looks like it's kind of far away from the.
There's also no chain at all in the show. They just burn them all out, like kind of in the big bay.
Right.
They don't have that whole.
Right. Yeah, they send some like ghost ships out there,
and it doesn't make sense how Stannis shows up on the in the books. Like the men of Stannis' side who show up on the bank cross that bridge of ships. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Stannis just like gets to the gate like from the fiery water.
Yeah, I think in the books, like maybe if any, it's less than 10 ships make it upstream, like up the river far enough to be past the fire, and I think maybe 1 or 2 ships like start to ferry Stannis' men there. But like again, there's 100 ships, and they literally take out like 80.
So the other way they could go is just super way around then to one of these like side gates, right? But
to the north side, you're saying.
Or the west side. Like, you got to be able to cross the river at some point. It's not the fucking twins, you know?
My map, the next place where a road's crossing, and again, like, that doesn't even mean that there's a crossing. Just like here, there's a road crossing, that there's no crossing. So we don't know that it means anything, but it doesn't look close.
Right, but we're not hearing about this river like it's the twins that you can't cross it, like, or you have to go to this one spot. So, all right, it's not that big of a deal. We kind of spent some time.
But it has to be big enough that well, I mean, it's important because Stannis' army is stuck. Like, it's a point in the book that like Stannis' army can't just. If you'd think that if it was just like another day's march, they would do it. Mm-hmm. Because we hear in the Davos chapter that the fleet has been delayed a fuck ton. Like that, like they had bad weather, they were becalmed for a while, they got into a fight or two. So like Stannis they think that Stannis' army has probably been waiting for like a week or two. And I think in the next Tyrion chapter, which is before the Battle of the Blackwater, we hear that that's true, and we hear that like Shagga and them have just been going to town on them for a while. Like for a while because they're stuck there.
I was curious of what happens with them, like if they actually like do some cool.
That's
shit
what I'm saying.
not.
Like it all kind of folds up. Like I think Stannis does get stuck on that bank with no one to ferry him for a while. And again, I don't think Stannis is like camped on the bank. He's like further back in the woods or whatever. But I think Shagga, like the mountain clans become a little bit of a problem for him. And then, I mean, they are setting up everything to be like, oh, Tyrion's going to lose here. The wildfire is going to be bad. Wildfire ends up being good. Tyrion would lose. But then basically Tywin shows up and saves the day.
Mm-hmm. Right. All right. So first thing I had down was the 2 Kingsguard men. Not really them, but one of them tries to kill Tyrion soon.
Mandon Moore tries to kill Tyrion, yeah, in the Blackwater.
I just forgot kind of like what these guys do in the like who saves Tyrion? Podrick, right? Or not?
Yeah, Podrick saves Tyrion. I can't really remember any like what notable do these 2 Kingsguard guys do. Balon Swan, I'm not sure. Tyrion here thinks he's like a decent guy.
Mm-hmm.
He might be the one that's being sent down to find out what happened to Marcella and Sir Ares Oakheart.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Like that might be where he's at right now. But again, I don't know like if he's like actually like corrupt at all. Like he's been around. He doesn't seem to be a great guy. He's kind of seems like a Cersei crony. But Tyrion kind of thinks kind of highly of him here, so I'm not sure.
And then Osmond banging Cersei, and
yeah, he might be like in a dungeon again. I think there's 3 brothers and a dad who all come into the story at some point, all with their own names. I'm gonna treat them kind of like I told Kyle early on. They're all kind of the same person. I think by the time the Blackwater starts, they're gonna be different. Like one of them is gonna be in Cersei's personal guard, while the other one's like in the battle with Joffrey. So like once more of them start showing up at the same time, that's when it becomes important. But so far we've only really got one. And let's see, I don't even remember which one it is.
Oh, Osmond.
The other interesting thing is we did get Kyle on the Barristan. He is out there. Yeah.
Where's Barristan? Yeah. All right. So the next thing I had was the new Septon. I don't remember the Septon because I know the High Sparrow has a better storyline.
I think there's another Septon or two before. I think there's another Septon or two before like we get to the High Sparrow.
Before the High Sparrow.
I don't really remember what happens to this one.
I knew he didn't survive, so I was like, what the fuck happens to this guy?
Before we get off it, I want to go back to the Antler Men. The thing that I wanted to bring up about them is right now Marine, they're flinging bodies into Marine.
Right now they are?
I think.
Or in current time.
I think at the end of Dance with Dragons, I think where we are is there, if not, it's in Winds of Winter chapters.
Slaves, right? They're sending slaves.
If not, it's in Winds of Winter chapters. I think they're flinging body of like sick people, the people who died of the sickness to try and infect people.
Right. Definitely happening.
But I think there's theories that because these catapults are set to fire people and they're just barely getting over the walls, that if they switch to actual like rocks and stuff, it will go nowhere near as far, because here Tyrion says the people are going the whole way across the river. So that's the other thing is Tyrion says that again in that Blackwater chapter, to give a size of the river, the men, well, he doesn't say if they do or not, but he says the men were like betting if when they fired the Antler Men, if they would go the entry way across the river. Again, these are the biggest trebuchets Tyrion's ever seen.
That they've ever made.
The heads go over the wall. So, but
it makes sense. The last thing I had was just the alliance with Balon. Like,
it's weird. I don't know why Tyrion even lingers on it. Like, just say no. It's a bad idea.
Right.
He can't help you, and you don't want to give away your like both things he says are bad things. Like he can't help you, and you don't want to give away half your realm. So it seems like an easy no, but he's like, I don't know what to do with this. I'll give it to Cersei. It just seems like, what? What do you mean? Just say no.
Just say no. Whatever. Like maybe later on when you're not like immediately under attack and you're trying to like establish new, stronger alliances like you'd want to.
Was it you or Kyle who said get his help and then just fuck him later?
Yeah, that was Kyle.
Yeah, I mean, he's thinking like a Lannister.
Yeah. I mean, then you're just at war again.
I guess, but with Balon, who gives a fuck? Well, yeah, I mean, he's not nothing.
Yeah, I mean, they could do their shit on the water at least. They'll just own your ass on the water, but
yeah.
That's the other point of like, let them own the water. They're not really going to take over anything of sort or be able to like hold. Like at the first sign of like land battle, you think they fold their tent up and go home.
But most major cities are on, if not a coastline, like to an ocean, at least like a big river, right? Like
sure,
you need water. You need water for transportation and shit like that.
I bet you could siege them. You could siege them enough that you can kind of slow them down.
What do you mean? I'm saying
say.
You're saying that I thought your first point was an only seafaring people isn't that deadly. My point is I agree, but most major cities are on the sea, so they could conquer like all the coastlines.
I think no. What I'm saying is that they're going to be able to maybe take over a spot, but I think you can siege a castle and
not if you can't buy
set up.
Not if it's like if you can't. You definitely could not siege King's Landing if you couldn't do it from the sea. You couldn't siege Storm's End if you couldn't do it from the sea. You couldn't siege White Harbor if you couldn't do it from the sea.
Why? What do you mean? Stannis just did it from the land.
But he had ships too. You need both, is what I'm saying. So if the Greyjoys say they took over every city on the coast and they only held the sea, you could never siege any of their castles because they could always get food there from another castle via the sea. If they only took over the castles that were on the sea.
I guess if the walls are good enough.
Gulltown, White Harbor, King's Landing,
you'll have a
Dorne.
spot. You'll have a spot to sail into.
Yeah. Again, I don't think it would ever go that way, but I don't know.
And they're also just not very big either.
Yeah,
they can't have that
I don't
many
take them as a
people
serious threat right now.
islands.
I don't know why Tyrion would take them as a serious threat, except for they just took over 3 kind of major castles in the north
that were not being guarded.
Yeah, exactly. So it doesn't really prove that they're big. That just proves that they're ballsy, kind of.
Yeah, that's all I had. Those 3 things.
Yeah, I don't have a lot. We don't got to linger. It took me forever to edit the last one, so I'm good to call this one short. See you boys in the next one. It is a good one. A little bit of a long one too, and but it's a good one.
Theon guy.
Theon. Bran escapes. Wakes up to Bran escaped.
Uh-oh.
What's he gonna do? We'll find out in the next one.
Hear me roar.
Bye-bye. Join the Discord. Leave us a comment on iTunes. Even if you don't watch on iTunes, if you really like us, go over to iTunes, leave us a review and
give us a shout out.
A comment or whatever, however that works. I think that's important. Thanks, guys. Bye. See you in the next one.
Bye.